Imagine stepping outside your apartment tonight and seeing not the glow of streetlights, but the flicker of firelight on stone. Imagine that instead of traffic, you hear the rustle of tall grass and the crack of branches under watchful predators. And imagine that the faces staring back at you, faces like yours, with eyes capable of love, fear, jealousy, and wonder, belong not to modern neighbors, but to the very first Homo sapiens. The urgency of this thought experiment lies in its reflection of our own time. We too live in uncertainty, climate instability, pandemics, technological disruption. We struggle to balance cooperation and competition, belonging and alienation. These dilemmas are not inventions of the 21st century. They echo back to our origins, when survival itself was precarious and every decision could mean life or death. Our skyscrapers, subways, and satellites create an illusion of distance from those early camps. Yet beneath glass and steel, our hearts still beat to the same ancient rhythms: fear of exclusion, longing for connection, hunger for meaning. The first humans were not primitive shadows of us. They were us, only at the beginning of a journey still unfolding. So, what would it feel like to live among them? To watch a child discover fire for the first time? To share food not out of charity, but out of survival necessity? To carve marks on stone without knowing that those marks would one day be called art? The story of the first Homo sapiens is not a distant prelude. It is a mirror. In their fragile camps, we find the earliest chapters of the very same questions that haunt us now. And that is why this story matters, because in looking back, we glimpse ourselves more clearly.
When most of us picture the first Homo sapiens, the images come from cartoons, movies, and dusty museum dioramas. Crude cavemen, dressed in animal skins, grunting, dragging clubs, and huddling around fire as predators circle. They appear clumsy, brutish, forever locked in a struggle against a hostile world. This caricature has survived because it satisfies a simple narrative. Before us, life was nasty, short, and primitive. Civilization was the great salvation. But the truth is more layered, more unsettling, and more inspiring. The first sapiens were already carrying the seeds of everything we call human. They weren't wandering caricatures. They were problem solvers and artists, parents and dreamers. Evidence shows they made jewelry, painted caves, and developed rituals that suggest rich symbolic lives. Their firelight was not only a tool for warmth and cooking, but also a stage where myths, laughter, and fears flickered into existence. The myth of the brutish caveman blinds us to a deeper continuity. The same minds that painted on rock walls 30,000 years ago are the minds designing skyscrapers today. Strip away the suits, the smartphones, and the skylines, and you would still recognize them in the curve of a smile, the cadence of a laugh, the instinct to tell a story by fire. And so the simple tale of cavemen dissolves. What remains is something far more powerful, the knowledge that our ancestors were not merely surviving. They were already imagining, already creating, already searching for meaning. If we step closer to those first human camps, the picture sharpens, but also grows stranger. We know they hunted and gathered, but how did they organize themselves?
Did they live under the rule of the strongest, or did they share power through consensus? Were families bound by blood alone, or by rituals and stories that tied strangers together? The greatest mystery is communication. Language leaves no fossils, only traces in our anatomy and in the complexity of the artifacts left behind. Did the first Homo sapiens speak in words or in gestures and song-like sounds? Did myths emerge around the fire, shaping collective identity long before written history could record them? Equally perplexing is survival itself. Why did Homo sapiens endure when Neanderthals, who were strong, intelligent, and adapted to harsh climates, vanished? Was it superior cooperation, a richer symbolic imagination, or sheer chance? The absence of definitive answers keeps these questions alive, making the story of early societies not a solved puzzle, but an unfolding mystery. Even their spiritual world remains elusive. Burials suggest reverence for the dead, perhaps even belief in an afterlife. Was this the dawn of religion, or a practical response to grief? In these unanswered questions lies the haunting pull of anthropology. The first societies are like ghostly mirrors, familiar yet just out of reach. To approach them, we must turn to what remains, the silent witnesses of stone and bone. And in those fragments, their voices begin to whisper. Archaeology is our time machine, and its language is fragments, broken tools, scattered bones, ochre-stained shells. Each discovery is a whisper from deep time, offering glimpses into lives that otherwise dissolve into silence. Among the most haunting of these sites is Blombos Cave in South Africa, where pieces of ochre were etched with geometric patterns some 75,000 years ago. These markings are not utilitarian, they are symbols, the earliest evidence of humans reaching beyond survival to representation. They tell us that imagination and abstraction lived in our species long before writing. Nearby we find shell beads, carefully pierced and worn as ornaments. Jewelry may seem trivial, yet it speaks of identity, status, perhaps even beauty, themes as modern as fashion itself. These were not cavemen indifferent to aesthetics. They were people for whom meaning and self-expression mattered deeply. Other sites revealed burials dusted with red ochre, suggesting ritual, respect, or belief in a world beyond death. A skeleton carefully laid to rest is not mere disposal, it is a statement of value. It tells us that grief and remembrance are as old as humanity itself. The tools, too, tell their story. Finely crafted blades, bone needles, fishing hooks. Each object is a frozen moment of ingenuity, an answer to the demands of survival. But when placed alongside symbolic artifacts, they reveal a duality. Humans did not simply live, they thought, decorated, and wondered. Now contrast these relics with the artifacts of today. Our smartphones, skyscrapers, satellites. Both are tools, both are symbols. The difference is scale, not essence. The same mind that etched ochre lines on a stone tablet now codes digital ones and zeros into glowing screens. Archaeology thus collapses the illusion of distance. The bones and stones are not alien remnants, they are family heirlooms. And through them, the first Homo sapiens are not shadows of the past, but ancestors whose fingerprints still echo in everything we build, wear, and believe. To understand the first Homo sapiens, we often look sideways, toward the animals who still share our world. In chimpanzee troops, we see politics as raw as any human parliament, alliances formed, betrayals staged, dominance challenged. Bonobos remind us of another path, where conflict dissolves into intimacy and cooperation softens the edge of survival. Elephants mourn their dead, lingering over bones with a quiet reverence that mirrors human grief. Wolves hunt in disciplined packs, each member bound by roles that ensure the group endures. These behaviors are not human inventions. They are ancient patterns written deep into the fabric of life. Early Homo sapiens would have recognized them because they lived them. The urge to cooperate, to console, to dominate, to share. These were not gifts suddenly bestowed. They were evolutionary inheritances. Yet within this shared foundation lies the divergence. Chimpanzees may strategize, but they do not paint caves. Elephants may grieve, but they do not carve symbols into stone. What set us apart was not strength or size, but the restless imagination to transform cooperation into culture, grief into ritual, memory into story. And this raises a haunting question. Are we truly unique, or merely another primate whose instincts stumbled into extraordinary expression? Perhaps the first Homo sapiens were caught in the same tension we feel today, between being animals bound by instinct and beings compelled by meaning. In that fragile balance lies the secret of our humanity, a secret still unfolding. Picture a clearing at the edge of a forest, the air alive with the scent of smoke and roasted meat. A small band of Homo sapiens gathers here, no more than 30 souls bound together by necessity. At dawn, hunters return with antelope, their faces flushed with triumph. Children rush to meet them, while others tend to embers from the night before. Fire is not just survival, it is the heartbeat of the camp, drawing the group into its circle of warmth and light. Daily life balances between cooperation and tension. Food is shared, yet not without calculation. Alliances are cemented by generosity, rivalries revealed in who gets the choicest cut. Elders recall paths to waterholes, mothers soothe infants with lullabies that echo the rhythms of speech, and adolescents dream of proving themselves in the hunt. Around the fire, symbols are painted on stone or traced in the dirt. Spirals, animals, human forms. Are these messages, myths, or idle doodles? Whatever their purpose, they transform survival into story. Death, too, has its rituals. When a child dies, the body is wrapped in hide and dusted with red ochre before burial. Tears mix with silence. Grief is not hidden, but shared, a collective recognition that life is fragile. This is no mere disposal of remains. It is evidence of a mind that refuses to let go easily, that searches for continuity beyond loss. And then comes movement. When food thins or predators press too close, the camp disperses. Families gather tools, fire is carried in embers, and feet trace paths that will one day lead out of Africa itself. These migrations are not just geographical, they are existential. Every journey, every painted stone, every burial is a step toward the vast story of humanity. In the fragile intimacy of these camps, the first Homo sapiens were already living the dilemmas we still wrestle with today. How to share, how to grieve, how to belong. Their world may feel distant, but in its echoes, we hear ourselves. In the glow of firelight, something more than survival flickered to life. Fire was warmth, safety, and food, but it was also theater, a stage where imagination uncoiled. Shadows danced on cave walls, and in those shifting forms, the first Homo sapiens may have glimpsed meaning. Here, philosophy was born, not in books, but in whispers, symbols, and silence. Anthropology tells us that symbolic thought gave our species a decisive advantage, the ability to imagine what if, to plan, to create myths that bound groups together. These were tools as crucial as blades and spears. Yet philosophy reminds us that imagination is also a burden. Nietzsche spoke of eternal return, the weight of knowing our choices reverberate endlessly. Camus wrestled with the absurd, the human demand for meaning in a universe that offers none. The seeds of these dilemmas were already there, smoldering in those first circles of light. Were myths survival strategies, or were they humanity's first attempts to confront dread? When ochre was smeared on a body, was it instinctive ritual to soothe grief, or the first gesture of metaphysics? We cannot know for certain, but we can feel the resonance. To be human is to live between necessity and transcendence, between the body's hunger and the mind's search for eternity. The first Homo sapiens carried this tension, just as we do. Around their fires, they faced predators and famine, but also the abyss of thought. And it was there, in that fragile dance between survival and meaning, that humanity truly began. The dilemmas of the first Homo sapiens did not vanish with time. They merely changed shape. Our ancestors gathered around fire. We gather around glowing screens. They migrated across continents in search of survival. We migrate through digital networks in search of connection. The forms differ, but the longings are the same. Belonging, security, meaning. Tribal instincts that once protected small bands now shape our politics, binding us to identities that can unite or divide. The loneliness of exile from a camp finds its echo in the modern epidemic of isolation, where millions feel alone despite living in crowded cities. Even technology, the artificial intelligence we create, casts the same haunting question. What happens when we encounter a mind that is not our own? Early humans once looked across the fire and saw Neanderthals. We now look across screens and see machines. From the first ochre-stained burials to our climate fears and digital anxieties, the story is one continuum. The lesson is not despair, but recognition. We survived before, not because we were the strongest, but because we were the most adaptive, the most imaginative. That inheritance remains within us, urging us forward. If you lived among the first Homo sapiens, you would find not strangers, but reflections. Their fears, their laughter, their rituals, they would feel achingly familiar. The ochre marks on stone, the songs by fire, the burials in earth, all of them echo in our own restless search for meaning. Their story did not end in the caves. It flows through us, shaping every city skyline and every whispered dream. And yet, the story is unfinished. Evolution has not stopped. The question remains, what will we carve into the future? And will those who come after recognize us in it?